boxes and a helping hand. The hallway reeked of fresh paint, and dust motes danced in the weak sunlight filtering through the stairwell window. Maya wrestled with a box labeled Books, Philosophy, and Poetry. It was heavier than she'd anticipated, the cheap cardboard digging into her palms. She stumbled, catching herself against the peeling wallpaper. Seriously, she muttered, adjusting her grip. Each muscle screamed in protest. Maybe she should have taken up weightlifting instead of interpretive dance. She tried to hoist the box higher, her breath catching in her throat. It wobbled precariously. Just as she thought she'd manage it, the bottom gave way with a soft rip. A cascade of paperbacks threatened to spill onto the hallway floor. "Whoa, need a hand." The voice, warm and laced with amusement, startled her. She looked up to see Jack, her neighbor from apartment 3B, standing in his doorway. He was taller than she remembered, his shoulders broad beneath a faded denim shirt. His eyes, crinkled at the corners, held a genuine offer of help. "Oh gosh, yes please," Maya exclaimed, her cheeks flushing. "I thought I could handle this one, but apparently, philosophy and poetry are heavier than they look." Jack chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "I've been there. Let me get that for you." He stepped forward, effortlessly lifting the box. Even with the damaged bottom, he held it steady, the strain barely visible in his face. "Where to?" "Just inside the door, please. It's the living room, technically the only room besides the bathroom and closet." She gestured towards her open apartment door, a chaotic landscape of unpacked belongings. He followed her inside, carefully placing the box on the floor near a precariously stacked tower of suitcases. "Moving is always a beast," he said, surveying the scene with a knowing smile. "Looks like you've got quite a project ahead of you." Maya sighed, running a hand through her already messy hair. "You have no idea. I thought I'd be mostly unpacked by now, but I'm already exhausted." "Well," Jack said, rolling up his sleeves, revealing forearms surprisingly toned for a man his age. "How about I give you a hand with a few more boxes? I've got some time this afternoon, and it looks like you could use it." Relief washed over Maya. She'd been trying to maintain a facade of independence, determined to prove she could handle this on her own. But the truth was, she was overwhelmed. "That would be amazing. Are you sure it's not too much trouble?" "Not at all," he replied, his eyes meeting hers. "Consider it a welcome to the neighborhood gift." He paused, a subtle shift in his expression. "Besides, I enjoy a good workout." Maya couldn't help but smile. "Okay, deal. But I'm making us some serious coffee when we're done." "My treat." "Sounds like a plan," Jack said, already heading back towards the hallway. "Which box is next?" As they worked together, carrying boxes, sorting belongings, and sharing stories, Maya felt a lightness she hadn't experienced since arriving. Jack's presence was calming, his quiet strength a welcome contrast to her own frenetic energy. He listened patiently as she rambled about her dreams of becoming a writer, offering insightful comments and gentle encouragement. She found herself drawn to his easygoing nature, and the way his eyes seemed to hold a lifetime of stories. The task of unpacking suddenly felt less daunting, almost enjoyable. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the room as they finished the last of the boxes. Maya leaned against a stack of cushions, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "I honestly don't know how to thank you, Jack. You're a lifesaver." He leaned against the doorframe, a comfortable silence settling between them. "Anytime, Maya. Glad I could help." But his eyes lingered a moment longer than necessary, a spark of something unreadable flickering within them. Unexpected connection. The box labeled Kitchen Mayhem threatened to burst. Maya grunted, readjusting her grip. "I swear my collection of mismatched mugs weighs more than my entire wardrobe." Jack chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Mugs are essential. You never know when you'll need a vessel for emergency hot chocolate." He effortlessly hoisted another box, its contents rustling ominously. This one sounds like it's full of secrets. Probably just old photo albums, Maya said, following him into the apartment. Sunlight streamed through the open doorway, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. She tripped slightly, catching herself on Jack's arm. His touch was surprisingly firm, steady. "Thanks," she mumbled, a blush creeping up her neck. "No problem," he said, his voice warm. "Gracefulness is overrated anyway." They continued moving boxes, the initial awkwardness slowly dissipating. Maya found herself telling Jack about her disastrous attempt to bake a soufflé, and he countered with a story about his own culinary mishap involving a rogue pressure cooker. Laughter filled the small apartment, echoing off the bare walls. Later, while unpacking the living room essentials box, Maya unearthed a stack of old DVDs. "Oh wow, I forgot I even owned these," she said, rifling through the titles. "Casablanca, Citizen Kane, my grandma's influence, definitely." Jack stopped unpacking, his eyes widening. "You like classic movies?" "Love them. Though I'm usually the only one my age who does," Maya admitted. "Everyone else is obsessed with superhero flicks." "Superhero movies are fine, but there's nothing like a good black and white film," Jack said, a genuine enthusiasm lighting his face. "Have you seen The Third Man?" Maya gasped. "Are you kidding? Orson Welles is a genius. The zither music alone gives me chills." They spent the next hour debating the merits of different directors, actors, and cinematic techniques. Maya was surprised by Jack's encyclopedic knowledge of film history. She'd pictured him spending his evenings gardening or reading the newspaper, not dissecting the plot of Sunset Boulevard. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Maya realized she was still holding a half-unpacked box. "I should probably get back to work," she said reluctantly. "Right," Jack replied, his voice a little lower than before. "Me too." He hesitated. Maybe we could watch one of those movies sometime. If you want." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "I'd like that," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "Great. I'll let you get back to it then." After Jack left, Maya stood in the middle of her half-unpacked living room, a strange feeling fluttering in her chest. It wasn't just gratitude for his help, it was something more. Something unexpected. She glanced at the stack of DVDs, a smile playing on her lips. Maybe moving wasn't so bad after all. Maybe it was the start of something new. Lunch and lingering thoughts. The sandwiches were turkey and Swiss on rye, a simple offering Jack had prepared that morning. They sat on a bench overlooking the small pond in the park across from Maya's apartment building. Sunlight dappled through the leaves of the ancient oak tree beside them, painting shifting patterns on the water's surface. "Thank you for this," Maya said, taking a bite. The bread was soft, the turkey flavorful. "It's way better than anything I would have thrown together." Jack chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. "My pleasure. Years of practice. Carol always said I made a mean sandwich." The air thickened. Carol. Maya had seen the photos, the ghost of a smile in Jack's eyes whenever her name was mentioned. She knew Carol had passed away a few years ago. "She was lucky to have you," Maya said softly, surprised at the boldness of her own words. Jack looked out at the pond, his gaze distant. A flock of geese landed on the water, causing ripples that spread outwards. "We were lucky to have each other. It wasn't always easy, you know. Life throws curveballs. But we faced them together." He paused, his voice catching slightly. "She taught me a lot about resilience. And about love. Real, unwavering love." Maya felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. More like a longing. A yearning for that kind of connection. She swallowed, suddenly aware of the silence between them. "It sounds like you shared something very special," she managed, her voice a little shaky. He turned back to her, his eyes clear and filled with a gentle sadness. We did. And it changed me. Shaped me into the person I am today. He smiled, a small, fleeting expression. I wouldn't trade it for anything. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the only sound the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. Maya found herself watching Jack, studying the lines etched around his eyes, the way his hands moved when he spoke. He was so different from anyone she had ever been attracted to before. Older, yes, but also grounded. Solid. Safe. A strange mix of comfort and attraction swirled within her. Was it wrong to feel this way? To be drawn to a man who carried such a heavy history? She remembered her mother's warnings about May-December romances, about men who preyed on younger women. But Jack didn't feel like that. He felt genuine. As they finished their sandwiches, a cool breeze swept through the park. Jack reached for her empty wrapper. Ready to head back? Maya hesitated. She wasn't ready. She wanted to stay here, basking in the warmth of his presence, even if it was a complicated, confusing warmth. Not really, she admitted, surprising herself again. Can we just sit here for a little longer? Jack smiled, a real, unguarded smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. My pleasure. They sat in silence, side by side, watching the world go by. But Maya's thoughts were far from the park, the pond, the geese. They were lingering on Jack, on his words, on the quiet strength that radiated from him. And on the unsettling, exhilarating possibility that something was blossoming between them, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. Curious eyes. The next afternoon, Maya baked a batch of her abuela's famous chocolate chip cookies, the aroma filling her small apartment with a comforting sweetness. She carefully arranged them on a plate, a small mountain of gratitude, and walked next door. Jack answered the door with a warm smile, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Maya, this is a surprise, he said, stepping aside to let her in. Just a little thank you for all your help, she said, handing him the plate. They're my abuela's recipe. Everyone loves them. Jack took a cookie, his eyes closing in appreciation as he chewed. These are incredible, he said, his voice genuine. You shouldn't have. I wanted to, Maya said, feeling a flush creep up her neck. They sat at his kitchen table, talking about everything and nothing. She learned about his love for old jazz records and his volunteer work at the local animal shelter. He listened intently as she spoke about her dreams of becoming a graphic designer, and her struggles with her demanding college workload. Soon, popping over to Jack's became a regular occurrence. A shared cup of coffee in the morning, a quick chat about the weather, or an evening spent watching old movies. Maya found herself gravitating towards his calm presence, his easy laughter, and the way he seemed to understand her without her having to explain. But their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. As Maya walked back to her apartment one afternoon, she saw Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Gable whispering behind their hands, their eyes following her. A chill ran down her spine. Had they seen her leaving Jack's? The next day, while getting her mail, she overheard snippets of conversation. Always over there. Quite the age difference, isn't it? She pretended not to hear, grabbing her mail and hurrying inside, her cheeks burning. Back in her apartment, she replayed the whispers in her head. Was it really that obvious? Was she doing something wrong? That evening, she hesitated before knocking on Jack's door. The laughter that usually bubbled up inside her felt stifled, replaced by a knot of anxiety. She still wanted to see him, to talk to him, but the whispers of her neighbors echoed in her ears, a chorus of disapproval. Taking a deep breath, she finally knocked, hoping that the warmth of his smile could chase away the shadows of doubt that had begun to creep into her mind. Chloe's concerns. He simply understands, Chloe, Maya breathed, swirling the dregs of her iced tea. The cafe hummed with the lunchtime rush, a backdrop to Maya's infatuation, a world illuminated by Jack's disarming grin and perceptive insights. Chloe, however, remained unconvinced, picking at a stray thread on her jacket, a crease etched between her brows. Understands what, precisely? You've barely known him a fortnight. Maya's smile wavered. Time isn't the point, Chloe. It's resonance. He truly hears me when I discuss my photography, grasping the nuances of the light I'm chasing. He even knows Maya. Chloe exhaled, the puff of air barely disturbing her pixie cut. Maya, darling, he's 55. He's likely absorbed every photography documentary ever made. Reaching across the small table, she gave Maya's hand a brief squeeze. Sweetheart, just tread carefully. This feels fraught. Maya stiffened slightly. Fraught doesn't automatically mean wrong. Besides, we aren't planning a future. We're just talking. Connecting in a meaningful way. Talking that sets your eyes ablaze, like you've struck gold, Chloe retorted, a flicker of humor softening her anxious gaze. Listen, I'm delighted you're happy, genuinely. But 55 presents a different landscape, Maya. He might be contemplating retirement communities, while you dream of backpacking through the Himalayas. The picture Chloe painted, of Jack in a muted sweater juxtaposed with Maya in vibrant travel gear, felt disconcertingly plausible. A seed of doubt began to sprout within Maya. He's not that ancient, she muttered, more to herself. All right, he's seasoned, Chloe conceded, with an eye roll. But seriously consider this, Maya. The milestones, what about children? What happens when his vigor wanes? What happens when your ideal night ends dancing until dawn, while he craves his pillow by 9? The questions lingered, heavy and unresolved. Maya examined her hands, suddenly feeling exposed. Perhaps Chloe possessed a point. Perhaps she was being foolish, intoxicated by a childish crush. Jack was captivating, undoubtedly, but could that compensate for the canyon of years separating them? I don't know, Maya admitted softly, the light in her eyes subdued. I've never felt this way about anyone. Chloe gave her hand another reassuring squeeze. I know, honey. And that's wonderful. Just proceed with caution, all right. Don't let him whisk you away before you've checked for oncoming traffic. The cafe's hubbub intensified, each burst of laughter and muffled conversation amplifying the world outside their own, a world where age carried weight, where expectations loomed, and where a 19-year-old's infatuation with a 55-year-old was, at best, unorthodox. Maya drew a long breath, the sweetness of her iced tea now tinged with a bitter edge. The connection with Jack still felt significant, yet now a seed of unease had taken root, a fledgling tendril of apprehension threatening to strangle the joy she had so recently unearthed. Power outage. The lamps blinked, a fleeting, erratic strobe, then surrendered to the void. The building's hum, usually a constant presence, died in its throat. A gasp escaped me. Not since childhood, when blackouts meant family time illuminated by flashlight and the comforting click of board game pieces, had I faced this kind of dark. Now, alone within my cramped apartment, the ensuing hush pressed down, drumming against my eardrums. I groped for my phone, the screen's sudden bloom cast an unsettling pallor on my face. No bars. Inevitable. The flashlight app offered a meager, anxious beam that sliced through the gloom. Each settling of the aged structure, every whisper of wind against the glass, seemed magnified, laced with unseen threat. Absurd. I was an adult. Still, the atavistic dread lingered, a cold weight nestled low in my gut. After what seemed an age, though the clock likely marked only minutes, I couldn't endure it. Snatching my jacket, I ventured from my apartment, phone light leading the way. The corridor offered an even deeper darkness, a swallowing abyss. My own breath echoed too loudly. I paused outside Jack's door, feeling foolish for even considering seeking solace from a neighbor. Yet, the thought of indefinite solitude in this blackness felt crushing. My knock reverberated, sharp and intrusive. A moment later, the door swung inward, revealing Jack framed by the gentle radiance of candlelight. Surprise flickered across his features, morphing into concern. Maya. What's wrong? Power outage, I managed, heat rising in my cheeks. I just got a little spooked. A warm smile graced his face, etching deeper lines around his kind eyes. Come in, come in. I've got candles aplenty and a battery radio humming in the corner. Plus, some surprisingly palatable instant coffee. His apartment radiated a comforting warmth, the candlelight painting dancing figures on walls lined floor to ceiling with books. The comforting sense of cinnamon and aged paper filled the air. He indicated a well-worn armchair. Make yourself at home. Sinking into the plush cushions, I felt a measure of the tension bleed away. Thanks, Jack. I really appreciate it. He busied himself with the coffee, the quiet clinking of ceramic against metal offering strange comfort. For several minutes, we sat in easy silence, punctuated only by the soft crackle of the flames, and the faint static hiss from the radio, still searching for a signal. So I ventured, breaking the stillness, how do you typically weather these things? He chuckled softly. Reading, mostly. Or telling stories. My grandfather was a master of blackout tales. Generally spooky ones. His gaze drifted, lost in some distant memory. He always said the darkness coaxed out the best stories. Tell me one, I encouraged, feeling a warmth blooming that surpassed the meager heat of the coffee. He obliged, launching into a yarn about mischievous sprites and secret trails winding through the woods of his boyhood home. His voice, a low and soothing timbre, utterly captivated me, banishing the earlier fear. He turned the conversation to me, and I found myself excavating memories I rarely shared, exposing vulnerable pieces of myself I habitually kept shielded. As the candles dwindled, casting elongated, wavering shadows, I sensed a connection deepening between us, a shared haven forged within the gloom and illuminated by the tender glow of our exchanged narratives. It felt deeply personal, undeniably precious, and startlingly authentic. Confessions. The air hung still and thick, punctuated only by the drone of distant machinery. Maya's focus remained stubbornly fixed on the flaking paint of the swing set, a deliberate avoidance of Jack's scrutiny. Her heartfelt declaration lay between them, a fragile offering, like a prized possession laid bare. She steeled herself for the inevitable, a gentle rejection that would nonetheless leave a raw wound. Maya, Jack began, his voice resonating with a quiet depth. The swing groaned under his shift in weight, a metallic lament. If I pretended not to reciprocate your feelings, I'd be dishonest. Her head lifted, surprise etching itself onto her features. You mean it? He nodded, a subtle smile gracing his lips. Absolutely. From the moment you sought my assistance, a current sparked between us. The smile waned. But I dismissed it. Attributed it to admiration, a foolish fancy. Why would you? Barely audible, the question escaped her. The disparity in our ages, Maya. It's considerable. Societal expectations, your family's judgment. He raked his hand through his graying hair, a familiar gesture that spoke volumes of his inner turmoil. So you simply ignored it. Suppressed any acknowledgement. I attempted to. But it's been challenging. Particularly these past weeks, sharing moments with you. Witnessing your inherent kindness, your vivacity. His gaze finally locked with hers, an intensity that stole her breath. Restless energy fueled Maya's pacing at the edge of the porch. This is insane, right? I'm practically a child. You've got sweaters older than I am. The nervous laugh that followed sounded thin and unconvincing, almost hollow. Quite possibly, Jack conceded, amusement flickering in his eyes. But that doesn't negate the veracity of my emotions. It complicates matters irrevocably. She ceased her pacing to confront him directly. I am at a loss, Jack. I'm undeniably drawn to you, truthfully. But I'm also terrified. Concerned about external opinions, jeopardizing our existing friendship, about everything collapsing around us. The confession erupted, a torrent of anxieties spilling forth. He rose to meet her, his presence both reassuring and daunting. He refrained from physical contact, yet the space between them pulsed with unacknowledged longing. I understand. And I share your trepidation, Maya. This isn't some frivolous pursuit for me. Should we explore this connection further, it demands open minds and complete awareness of the potential repercussions. He reached out, delicately sweeping a stray wisp of hair from her cheek. The simple gesture ignited a tremor through her frame. There will undoubtedly be obstacles. Criticisms. Self-doubt. But those we confront in unison, presuming that is our mutual desire. Maya scrutinized his eyes, searching for any hint of deception or hidden agenda. She found only genuine sentiment, a reservoir of emotion reflecting her own. In that moment, she realized she couldn't retreat. The allure was too potent, the bond too profound. I'm uncertain if I possess the fortitude for all of that, she admitted, her voice wavering slightly. But I want to venture forward. To discover where this might lead. A radiant smile transformed Jack's face, illuminating his eyes. Then we shall proceed with caution. One deliberate step at a time. We will navigate this together. Facing the world. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she sat across from her parents at the kitchen table. The aroma of abuela's empanadas usually comforted her, but tonight, it felt suffocating. So she began, picking at a loose thread on her jeans. There's someone I've been spending time with. Her mother, Elena, raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Someone. Another college boy with a motorcycle and a penchant for skipping class. Maya winced. No, Mama. It's Jack. From next door. A beat of silence hung heavy in the air before her father, Ricardo, chuckled. Jack? The retired, what was it, firefighter. Maya, be serious. I am serious, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly. We've been getting to know each other, and I really like him. Elena's face hardened. Maya, he's old enough to be your father. What could you possibly have in common? We connect, Mama. We talk, we laugh, he understands me in a way no one else ever has. Ricardo pushed back his chair, the scrape against the linoleum echoing in the small kitchen. This is ridiculous. You're young, full of potential. Don't waste it on some old man clinging to his youth. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. He's not clinging to anything. He's kind and generous and he makes me happy. She stood abruptly, knocking over her water glass. The spilled liquid spread across the table, a cold, unwelcome reminder of the chasm that had just opened between her and her parents. The air felt thick with unspoken disapproval when Jack ran into a few neighborhood acquaintances while grabbing coffee the next morning. Morning, Jack, chirped Mrs. Henderson, her smile a tad too wide. Keeping busy since you retired? Trying to, Jack replied, adding sugar to his coffee. Heard you've been helping Maya out next door, Mr. Abernathy chimed in, a sly grin spreading across his face. She's a lovely girl. Bright future ahead of her. Jack's jaw tightened. She is. Mrs. Henderson leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It's just, well, people talk, you know. Such a difference in age. Hope you're not taking advantage. Heat flushed Jack's face. He set his coffee down with a clatter. I would never. Maya is a remarkable woman, and I value her friendship. He turned and walked out, leaving the half-finished coffee and the lingering scent of gossip behind. That evening, Maya found Jack on his porch, staring out at the sunset. He looked weary, defeated. She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. My parents, they didn't take it well, she confessed, tracing patterns on the wooden planks. Jack sighed. I figured. Some people don't understand what they don't experience. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. Then let's show them. Let's show everyone that what we have is real. He squeezed her hand, a spark of hope flickering in his eyes. Facing the world won't be easy, Maya. Are you sure you're ready? She met his gaze, her resolve hardening. As long as I'm facing it with you. The setting sun cast long shadows, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a silent promise of a new dawn, a new beginning, together. Happiness found. So, where to? Maya asked, tracing circles on a map spread across Jack's kitchen table. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and highlighting the map's faded colors. Jack leaned closer, his arm brushing hers. A jolt, familiar and welcome, shot through Maya. Anywhere but here, he said, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Somewhere with wide open skies and maybe a diner that serves the best apple pie you've ever tasted. Maya laughed, the sound light and free. Apple pie it is. How about Route 66? Classic, cheesy, and guaranteed wide open skies. He nodded, his gaze meeting hers. Perfect. Just us, the open road, and questionable roadside attractions. The easy banter settled into a comfortable silence as they mapped out a tentative route. Maya felt a sense of contentment she hadn't known she was missing. The future was still a blurry landscape, but with Jack beside her, it felt less daunting, more like an adventure waiting to unfold. Later that evening, as they sat on Jack's porch swing, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Maya voiced the question that had been hovering in her mind. Are we crazy, Jack? Doing this? He took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. Probably. But some of the best things in life are a little crazy, don't you think? He paused, searching her eyes. I know this isn't conventional, Maya. I know people will talk. But what we have, it's real. And I'm not willing to let other people's opinions dictate our happiness. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I'm scared, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Scared of what people will say, scared of it not working out, scared of everything. Jack gently wiped away a tear with his thumb. It's okay to be scared. But don't let fear control you. We'll face whatever comes our way together. One apple pie at a time. She leaned into him, burying her face in his shoulder. The scent of his worn leather jacket and the comforting rhythm of his heartbeat calmed her racing thoughts. I love you, Jack, she murmured. He held her tighter. I love you too, Maya. More than words can say. The next morning, the air buzzed with anticipation. The old convertible, lovingly restored by Jack, gleamed under the morning sun. Suitcases were packed, snacks were stowed, and the map lay open on the passenger seat, a roadmap to their unconventional future. Jack started the engine, the rumble a familiar song. He glanced at Maya, a mixture of excitement and trepidation in his eyes. She smiled, her heart overflowing with a love that defied age and expectations. He put the car in gear, and they pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the familiar and embracing the unknown. As they drove into the sunset, the golden light bathed them in a warm glow, a promise of happiness found, and a journey just beginning.